everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kay. It's that time of year for end of the year, beginning of the year kind of videos and stuff. Today I'm going to be doing my best of 2019. So all the books that I'm going to talk about, I'm focusing on the positive. So no salty complaining. That will be in a different video. I decided to do mine kind of like an award show type thing. So I've got kind of the best in genres and then breaking down, best characters and best world building and things like that, just so that I have plenty of opportunities to talk about all of my favorite books from the year and all of the books that I felt like did a great job and were super enjoyable. So it's going to be a bit of a long video just by the nature of it, so I'm just going to jump right in and get started. First things first, best book of the year. That is very easily going to be The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I read this at the end of the year, kind of right at the beginning of November, and absolutely loved it. If you don't know what it's about, it is about a young man named Zachary Ezra Rollins. And he is a graduate student, I believe, and he's at the library, comes across this old book, and discovers a story in there about himself, and it was from when he was young. I think he was like 11, and he found a painted door on the side of the building where his mother's shop was. I think she's like a palm reader, a tarot woman, I don't know, something of that nature. Fortune teller, that's what it is, because it's the fortune teller's son. And it's basically just this short little story about, when he found this door and he did not go through it. This piques his interest because he never told anybody about this thing that happened to him, and the book appears to be extremely old, much older than he is. So it sets him off on this kind of quest to find the Starless Sea and the kind of labyrinth library that exists on its shores. It's a story with multiple kind of threads to it. It's not an adventure story. It's not necessarily edge of your seat, so it's certainly not for everyone, but it is a beautiful story. I mean, the language and the imagery that it evokes is gorgeous. As soon as I was done reading it, I couldn't wait to reread it and to experience it all again. I actually created my own die. If you've read the book, there's a part where in order to get into the library they have to roll these 6 dice, and there's the symbols on them, and I actually made my own. I want to kind of elaborate on that and work on some more and kind of finalize the design on so that I have my own set. And that's kind of the first time that that's happened to me in a really long time, as far as reading a book and being inspired to really create something from it. So that's why, for me, The Starless Sea is the top tier book of the year. Best fantasy of the year, I'm going to go with Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast. So there's nature magic, there's this kind of dark forest. I really enjoyed this. Read at the beginning of the year, was kind of surprised because I've read Naomi Novik's Temeraire series, which is the Napoleonic Wars with dragons, and they were alright, but I wasn't super crazy about them. But this was very different from those, so I decided to give it a try, and ended up really liking it. I liked the main character and the way that she kind of forges her own path, especially with the magic. I really appreciated that. Best sci-fi of the year is going to be Dark Age by Pierce Brown. This is the 5th book in the Red Rising series, so it's like there's the original trilogy and then there's a secondary trilogy that's in the future a little bit. And this is the 2nd book in that trilogy. This is an 800-page book. I read it in a couple days. I did do a review that I'll link down below where I go into detail about the book. But it was a really good book. I hadn't read the previous 4 books in quite a while, so I didn't remember all of the characters. I didn't remember exactly where it left off. That was my fault. I don't know why, but for some reason I forgot that I should reread the previous books first. I was just too excited to get the book and read it, I guess. But even without having done that, I was still able to really, really enjoy it. It had a couple moments there where it was kind of like, okay, this is getting a bit out of hand. I mean, you can't just cut people's limbs off and then, well, I'm just gonna grow them back, it's fine. It kind of just removes some of the high stakes there when you do that. But other than that, I don't really have too many complaints. I'm looking forward to the 6th and I believe final book in the series. I don't know when that's coming out, but I can't wait. Next is Best Thriller of 2019, and that's going to be The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. I'm choosing this for Best Thriller because it's the first thriller that I read this year, and it kind of kicked off a little thriller run for me. I've read several since then, and it was really good. It had a really beautiful cover, it had some texture on the front, and the story itself was really good. I did not guess the ending. I enjoyed how it was told. I had not previously read very many thrillers, just a couple, and it had been quite a while since I read them. So, yeah, it was fun. It was a book that came in at the newspaper where I work. The publisher sent it over for a review, and the editor handed it off to me because he knows that I read. And eventually I did get around to reading it, and then found, like, oh wow, this is really good. I really enjoyed it. Went on to pick up some other thrillers after that. Best graphic novel. At this point, I mean, I haven't read a ton of them this year, unlike previous years. It's probably going to be Descender 5. 6 is the last one in the series, and I read both of those for the first time this year. But 6 was a little bit of a letdown just because I'm not super happy with how the series ended. Although I am currently reading Ascender, which is the sequel series, so I may end up liking that one better, I'm not sure. Today is technically the last day of the year, so it will still count. And maybe if I finish it, I might insert a clip if I change my mind. But, yeah, it's probably going to be Descender. This is like my favorite graphic novel series. I read some other ones, not a lot, but I read some other ones. This is just one of the ones that I enjoy the most, and I've reread them a few times, because every time a new volume comes out, I just reread all of them. So I've read the first few several times now. But yeah, it's sci-fi, it's got robots, kind of this post-apocalyptic feel to it, because there were these giant robots that came in and destroyed worlds and people and everything. There's a lot of kind of social commentary, I guess, going on. So it's really enjoyable. The art is beautiful in it, and I look forward to the sequel series that is ongoing right now. Next is Best Nonfiction, and that's going to be As You Wish by Cary Elwes. This is, in case you don't know, Cary Elwes is the star of The Princess Bride. He played Wesley. And this is just like his kind of memoir about that time, about filming that movie. I listened to it on audio, which I would highly recommend for anyone who's interested in reading this book, because they do get like anecdotes and little remembrances from different people that were involved. So like the director, producers, other actors, and then for the audio book, they actually were able to get most of those people to read their parts that they submitted for his book. And I think that just was kind of made it special. So obviously, if you aren't a fan of The Princess Bride, you're not going to care. But for anybody who is a fan of it, I mean, I watched it when I was a lot younger. My mom introduced me to it, so it definitely was like, it was just really great to listen to it. And then I ended up watching the movie again. I hadn't watched it in a while, and introduced it to my daughter, and she thinks it's hilarious. And so it kind of just started this whole thing, and now she quotes it every once in a while. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, anybody who's a fan of the Princess Bride movie should definitely read this book, and I would recommend it on audio. Next up is Best Anthology. That is going to How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. This is the one and only anthology I have ever given 5 stars to. There was not really a single story in this collection that I didn't enjoy. She's got a really broad range of stories and types of stories in this collection, and she does all of them well. I mean, it's different genres and different locations and different types of characters, and I think she did all of them really, really well. So normally I don't care for anthologies. I tend to have kind of a hard time getting through them just because the stories can be so hit and miss. And I don't know if it's because these were all by the same author, but it was superb. It is definitely 5 stars, and I would recommend it to anybody who enjoys N.K. Jemisin or who is thinking about getting into her stuff and maybe just wants to have like a sneak peek. I think this is a really great place to start because you do kind of see everything that she can do. Next is the best YA, and for that's going to be Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I don't read a ton of YA, but I did read a little bit this year. Skyward is a science fiction book, so that's a little bit different for Brandon Sanderson, but I think it was very successful. You have Spencer, who wants to be a pilot. They live on this planet, and they have to live underground because there are these aliens whose name I can't remember. I can't remember what they're called. But basically they come down and they can sense when large groups of humans are together, and then they'll like bomb the place and everything. And so there's just this constant battle against them. So they have constant needs of pilots to go up and fight and shoot down these aliens. And that's what Spencer wants to do. But she can't because her father is a known coward and traitor. He deserted in the middle of the war. And so that's kind of tarnished her family's reputation and then her ability to join the ranks of these pilots. Obviously she does get in. That's not really a spoiler, but then this is about her going through the training and kind of trying to overcome the reputation that her father had left behind. And I thought it was really well done. The ending had a really nice kind of revelation, I guess you would say, at the end. So it makes me really look forward to the sequel, which is out, but I haven't gotten to read yet. I'll be doing that hopefully soon. I've got to get over to the library and see if they have it. But I think it left off in a great place. Once again, I think Brandon Sanderson did a great job, and I'm really looking forward to getting to the sequel. Next, best standalone, Spinning Silver. This is similar to Uprooted. This is a loose retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. You have a young woman who is Jewish. Her father is a moneylender, and she ends up kind of taking over his business because he's terrible at it, and no one ever pays him back, and so they're super poor. She takes over things and starts making money for her family so that they aren't so like destitute. And then she kind of draws attention to herself from this magical being whose name I don't remember what they're called. I read this back at the beginning of the year, so my memory's a little fuzzy on it. But it draws off of mythology, I think, from like Eastern Europe, probably Russia. I really enjoy when fantasy and science fiction kind of are drawing off of something other than, you know, Western European mythology and times and things of that nature. So this one did that, and I think it did it really well. It has a very kind of wintry, cold setting. I always see a lot of people recommending The Bear and the Nightingale for like winter reads. I didn't like that book, but I think this one kind of does the same thing. It's definitely like you feel the cold, and it's really good. So I would definitely recommend this along with Uprooted. They're kind of similar. Best horror. I only read one, but I wanted to be able to talk about Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant, aka Sean McGuire. This is Killer Mermaids. There's a ship that went out, a kind of research ship, sort of. They were out looking for mermaids. They were going to do like a mockumentary type thing, and then everybody was killed. And then this is kind of years later, and they're going back to find out what happened. And yeah, Killer Mermaids I was in because that sounds fun. It gave me Jurassic Park, the movie, vibes while I was reading it, so that was fun. Definitely lots of blood and gore. It's an interesting take on like killer mermaids and monsters in particular. And I really wish that she was able to write the sequel because I know she wants to, but there's a whole thing with the publisher, I think. And I think it deserves a sequel. It'd be very interesting to see where it would go from where we left off at the end. Best author. That's N.K. Jemisin. I read her Broken Earth trilogy. I read the Dreamblood duology, and then her anthology this year, all this year. Previously, I had read the Inheritance trilogy, I think is what it's called. I read that, I think, last year. But for me, to be able to say that an author is one of my favorite authors, I have to read several things by them, and not just like a single series. Like, if I read a 10-book series, I still can't say whether or not that author is really my favorite. The series might be, but they haven't done anything else to show me that it's, not just a fluke. And so N.K. Jemisin this year definitely did that for me. I feel like I got kind of a broad range of what she can do, and I enjoyed all of it a lot. So for me, that was kind of an easy pick to give the best author to her. Now we're going to go down into like breaking down elements of stories and things like that. So best first in the series, it's The Palace Job by Patrick Weeks. Unfortunately, I did not care for the sequel, or the 2 sequels, but the first one was really funny. I can't remember how I found out about this book. I think I saw it on a blog or something. I didn't really know what to think about it, but it sounded kind of interesting. It's got this kind of cast of characters, which is always fun. And I read it earlier this year, so it's been a while. But I know like the main kind of core of the book is that you have a woman named Locke. She was in the kind of the army, and she was screwed over by her government, more or less, and then left, I think, on the enemy's side, and then locked up. They put her in jail and kind of framed her for some stuff. And so she's trying to kind of get revenge and take back what was stolen from her family. And I was surprised by how funny the book was. I wasn't really expecting it. I like books that have like the thief kind of archetype anyway, and that's kind of what she is to a point. And you just have a lot of sarcasm and wittiness, and it was just a fun book to read. It's like over 400 pages, I want to say, and I read it all in a day, basically in a single sitting. So it was a lot of fun. I just, in my mind, I just treat it as a standalone, because I really did not like the second and third books, but the first one is a gem. Next is the best sequel, and that is Time Its Wrath by James S.A. Corey. This is the 9th book in the Expanse series, and this book very easily could have been the best sci-fi of the year. It was an excellent book, but I wanted to put it as the best sequel, because not only is it just a great book in and of itself, but as a sequel, and as being the 9th, I think it's the 9th. Let's look. Nope. Wrong. It's the 8th book in the series. But being the 8th book in a series of massive books that tell huge stories, it was still a fresh story. You have familiar characters that have been there all along. This series does do time jumps in between books. So, we're seeing these characters over decades. And you're still getting character growth that feels believable and it feels organic and real. But then you're also getting new characters who are doing things that are evolving the story. The story as a whole has kind of evolved and changed and grown from where it originally started. Because it started out as, the proto-molecule finding it, and it's taking people over, and it's like a threat to our solar system and things like that. And now we're in other worlds. And so the story is totally different, but the path to getting there feels real, and it feels believable. And you have this book that very easily could have been a little formulaic. It could have been retreading old ground, as a lot of multi-book series tend to do. They tend to kind of get in a rut. This book did not do that, and that's kind of one of the big takeaways I had after I finished reading it, was that, wow, that doesn't feel like just another book in the Expanse. It doesn't feel like a repeat of stuff we've already read. The politics and the evolution of the societies and things feels genuine and is believable, and I really appreciated that from this book. I want to reread the whole series, because once again, I failed to reread the previous books before picking up this one, and so it did take a while for me to kind of piece together and remember where we were at and what was happening. But despite all that, I still enjoyed it immensely. So I'm looking forward to kind of rereading it and maybe picking up on some of the things that I didn't get the first time through. Next is the best finale, and that's going to be Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second in the Dreamblood duology. I liked this book better than I liked the first one. I really liked the first one. It took a little bit of getting into. And the second one, too, it took me a little bit to kind of get hooked on the story and really get through it. But I liked it more than the first one. And I felt closer to the characters and more invested, I guess, in the characters. And I really appreciated the story. Surprisingly, I enjoyed the kind of romance that was kind of subtly put in there. Because it wasn't so in your face, I guess is probably why. But, yeah, I really liked what this book did. The magic system is very interesting in this duology. As a lot of her magic systems tend to be. It was a desert fantasy. I believe the world is inspired by kind of Egyptian type of stuff. So that's always fun when you have new settings that you're not used to seeing in books all the time. So if you have read the Broken Earth trilogy like a lot of people have, I like this one better than that series, to be honest. So maybe that's not true for everyone, but it is for me. I enjoyed it a lot. Next is the biggest surprise, the Immortals trilogy by Kate Locke, the first book being God Save the Queen. This book is just fun. I came across it at the library, didn't know anything about it. I was just looking through the really sad, tiny selection that we have there, and came across these books with these horrible covers, very cheesy. Didn't know anything about them, had never heard of them, but was like, I'll pick them up. I mean, what's it gonna hurt? If I don't like them, it's not a big deal. So, took them home, and then I read them, and was just laughing, and occasionally, slight eye roll. But, despite being, sort of these alternative history, urban fantasy type books, these weird little books, the finale was interesting. The kind of, the big bad behind everything was surprising. And these are books I think that I would pick up again if I was ever kind of in a slump or just kind of in a blah kind of mood. I think these would be great to pick up and read again. So if you like urban fantasy, you'd probably like these, I feel like. It did hit on some of those kind of tropes that you see, but it never felt too overboard to where I just couldn't handle it, because typically I don't like urban fantasy. Best couple, Abigail and Charlie from the Jacoby series. Jacoby series is a supernatural retelling of Sherlock Holmes, and Abigail Rook is the Watson character. Charlie Kane is a police officer. And their romance, which I guess is a slight spoiler, but it's just cute. Their relationship is adorable. Normally I don't care about relationships, romantic relationships and romantic plot lines in books, but there's just something about theirs that I do really enjoy. It's never front and center, it's never the main point of the book or anything, it's just kind of happening over here, and I really liked it. One of the few that I've ever cared about at all. So, next, best protagonist. Murderbot from the Murderbot Diaries. Murderbot is an AI robot thing who murdered a bunch of people. That's why they call themselves Murderbot. And basically they hacked their own software or whatever to where they have control, so they don't necessarily have to take orders, they just do. And they obviously don't want anyone to know, so they don't, get in trouble and get fixed. All they want to do is watch serials. So they just want to watch TV and enjoy their stories and be left alone and be left in peace. And then they just keep getting pulled into humans' problems. It's a series of novellas, so quick reads. There is a full-length novel coming out in 2020 that I'm excited to read. I hope it's as good as the novella series. But I think I like Murderbot so much because I relate to Murderbot. I like to watch TV, and I like to watch my TV shows, and I like to read my books. And I just want people to leave me alone and leave me in peace so that I can do those things by myself. So that's probably why I like Murderbot so much, is because I relate at a core level with Murderbot. Next, best antagonist. That's going to be Lilith from Lost Gods by Brom. I did a video kind of focusing on Brom as an author and kind of all the books that he's written that I have read. I read Lost Gods at the beginning of the year, and it's about a man who has to venture through the underworld to kind of get back. He has to get something, I forget. He has to retrieve something, and then that way he can get back because he's been killed, to save his family, to save his wife and his unborn child, I believe. And so it's like a journey through the underworld. It's a really cool book because you see a lot of kind of these ancient gods and things and different underworld mythologies kind of woven together. It's very interesting. The villain is Lilith, and she is scary and creepy and evil. And sometimes, you know, it's fun just to have a really evil villain, and that's what you get in this book, and I really liked it. And I liked her for being that kind of creepy, evil, makes your skin crawl kind of villain. Let's see. Best character arc. Okay, I don't know if you would call it a character arc, just maybe backstory. So that is Queen Invidiana from the Onyx Court series by Marie Brennan, specifically Midnight Never Come, which is the first book. So you have Queen Invidiana. She's the elf queen of the fairy court in London. She's a tyrant, basically. Your main character of Loon is a courtier. She's fallen out of favor, and there's a few different people that are basically trying to overthrow the queen. And Queen Invidiana, you're at first presented as she's just kind of this evil tyrant. But through the book, it's kind of revealed where she came from and like her backstory, and that was really cool. It added a lot of dimension and complexity to her character and to her story. You don't get the full explanation about her until the very end. But yeah, so I don't know if it's necessarily a character arc because you don't see her evolve necessarily over the course of the book so much. It's just that things about her are revealed throughout the book, and it makes her character very interesting to me. Almost done here. So next is the best world building, and I'm giving that to Wayward Children by Shauna McGuire. I love the series, but also each book, she has to create a new world for it. So you have the basic, the base of it is that you have these children who found their door and went through to their portal world, kind of where they belonged. But for whatever reason, they've had to come back to Earth, to our world. And so they go to this school that is basically helping them to either bide their time in the hopes that they can find their door again, or helping them to readjust to being back in this world and then hopefully be able to kind of go out and live their life. So they're at this school to kind of try to deal with the trauma of coming back from where they feel they were meant to be. And each book is, different. Each one is got glimpses of different portal worlds. So it's a lot of world building because each one has to be kind of unique and very different from any other one. That's why these children have certain ones they go to. And each one does that. A lot of people don't like the third one, which is Beneath the Sugared Sky. I didn't have a problem with it. I still enjoyed it. But it seems like a lot of people really don't like that one for some reason. I thought they're all great. There's a lot of representation in these books, and I find the stories extremely interesting. I like the different portal worlds that they can go into, and the way that some of the characters are just always trying to find their way home, basically. Sometimes things are heartbreaking and, really sad how they happen, and then other times, things work out, and then you're just so happy for these characters that they were able to get back to where they belonged. So that's why, for me, world building goes to this series, because basically she's building new worlds with every single book that she does. Best Magic System, Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is like an industrial fantasy. So the city is kind of, this dirty industrial city. Your main character's a thief, and I think she's supposed to deliver a package, you know, kind of thing, and then get paid to deliver this black market thing. And things obviously go wrong, and there's a talking key, and there's kind of these, you have this little bit of an ensemble cast going on. The magic is very cool. It's scriving, I think, or scrivening, or something of that nature. Basically, they etch these symbols or runes or whatever onto objects, and then that imbues them with purpose and with magic so that they do things. It's a different kind of magic system. It's not something I've necessarily really seen before. And the book was it was extremely good. I'd never read anything by him before, although now I want to go back and read some of the other stuff that he's written. I loved that damn talking key, whose name was, I want to say Clef. Love that talking key. There's a lot of mysteries still to be uncovered. The next book comes out in 2020. I think it's called Shorefall, I want to say. I'm hoping it's amazing, because the first book was so good. Yeah, looking forward to the sequel, definitely. And then the last one is Best Twist. And this goes to Last Time I Lied by Riley Stagger. I read all 3 of his books, so Final Girls, Last Time I Lied, and Lock Every Door. There's a 4th one coming out in 2020. Home Before Dark, maybe? Looking forward to that one. But of the 3, I liked The Last Time I Lied the best. I feel like that inevitable thriller twist was really good. I didn't really see it coming, which is not saying a lot for me because I never see it coming. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a woman who went to this summer camp as a young girl, and her bunkmates, there's 3 of them, they were kind of older than her a little bit, they disappeared. And no one ever figured out what happened to them. And now this is some years later, I don't remember how much later, but it's later, and they decided to reopen the camp, and they've invited her back as this kind of see, everything's gonna be okay kind of thing. So she ends up going back, and she's still trying to figure out what happened to the girls, and it's really good though. It's like a summer camp type of book. I could definitely see where it'd be a fun read in the summer. But the twist for me was the best of the 3 of his books that I read. And this is my favorite of the 3. If I were the type to buy and keep thrillers, I would probably get this one. But I don't, because I tend to not reread them, because once you know the twist, then it's not as fun to read them anymore. So that is my best of 2019. That's all I've got for today, so I will see you guys next time. Bye!